Dragon Emperor Sun Chapter 301 to Chapter 310. Okay. Lin Tianhu nodded. But just when Lin Tianhu was driving the car to find a repair shop, he found a red Mercedes C following them all the time. Mr. Chen, there is a situation. Lin Tianhu glanced at the rear-view mirror and said. David glanced back in the car, and hurriedly turned his head back, driving to a remote place. There are too many people on the street here. Lin Tianhu suddenly steered towards the outskirts of Yuncheng, and the red Mercedes-Benz also hurriedly steered and followed. Sonia saw another car following them, her face became a little ugly, and her whole body trembled slightly. David put one arm around Sonia's shoulder and comforted softly, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." Soon the car drove to a relatively remote place. Lin Tianhu stopped the car, and the red Mercedes also braked suddenly and stopped behind. David and the others got out of the car. Because Sonia was afraid, David's hand was always on Sonia's shoulder, and he held her in his arms. At this time, a girl stepped down from the driver's seat of the red Mercedes. The girl had short hair, delicate facial features, and a round face that looked like a doll. After the girl got out of the car, David and Lin Tianhu were both stunned. Such a girl doesn't look like a killer no matter what. The girl held a wrench in her hand and looked at David and Lin Tianhu with a bit of horror in her eyes. "Who are you? Let go of my cousin, I've already called the police." The girl pointed at David with a wrench, but her hands were shaking badly. David and Lin Tianhu were stunned for a moment, and they all looked at Sonia involuntarily. At this time, Sonia's eyes were full of tears, and she was too excited to speak. "Fei Fei, you have risen so high, I don't even recognize you." As Sonia said that, she ran directly towards the girl and hugged the girl. This time, the girl was stunned, looked at David, and then at Sonia, a little dumbfounded. "Sister Sonia, haven't you been kidnapped by these two villains?" the girl asked. "Kidnapping?" Sonia was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. "What kidnapping? These two are my friends, let me introduce you to them." Sonia took the girl to David. "This is my cousin Gu Yufei. The two are called David and the other is Lin Tianhu." "Hello." David extended his hand generously. Gu Yufei blushed with embarrassment, and shook hands with David. "I'm so sorry, I thought you were bad people." It turned out that Gu Yufei happened to see David and the others when she was driving. She saw Sonia in the car, and David put her arm around her shoulders at the time. Sonia's face was not very good looking, and the back of David's car was smashed into pieces. Gu Yufei thought Sonia was kidnapped. So while calling the police, I drove up to follow. It turned out to be a misunderstanding. "It's all right, the misunderstanding is cleared up. We thought you were a bad person just now, and it scared me to death," Sonia said happily. "Sister Sonia, what happened to your car? What are you doing here in Yuncheng?" Gu Yufei asked with a puzzled expression. "Let's come over to buy some medicinal materials. As for the car, it's a long story. I'll tell you later." Sonia didn't want to talk too much with Gu Yufei, and didn't want her to know too much. After all, knowing more was not good for her. "Then get into my car. My sister is waiting for me to eat together. If she knew you were here, she would be very happy." Gu Yufei didn't ask any further questions, and pulled Sonia into her car. David took a look and said to Lin Tianhu, "Go and fix the car, we will call you then." Lin Tianhu nodded and drove away, while David also got into Gu Yufei's car and sat in the back seat. Gu Yufei and Sonia hadn't seen each other for several years, and the two of them chatted endlessly. "Sister Sonia, which group's son is your boyfriend from?" Gu Yufei asked. "He's not my boyfriend." Sonia shook her head. "Take it down, I've seen it all. He's not your boyfriend. You'll sit with him and let him hug you? Did you run out without telling your uncle?" Gu Yufei smiled playfully at Sonia. "No, my dad knew that we came to Yuncheng." Sonia hurriedly explained. Otherwise, Gu Yufei might take Sonia as an elopement, and she will call Reuben. Handsome guy, which group's son-in-law are you from? You can make my sister Sonia fancy, it seems that you have some skills. Gu Yufei was no longer afraid at this time, and asked David with a playful look. David smiled lightly, I'm not the son of any group, and now I'm an unemployed vagabond. It's your cousin who supports me. She bought my clothes. The suit David is wearing now was indeed bought by Sonia. Little white face. Gu Yufei was stunned, and the words little white face blurted out. Fei, don't talk nonsense. Sonia hurriedly glared at Gu Yufei, and then looked at David apologetically. David, my cousin has this personality, don't mind. David smiled slightly, this character is very good, I like it. It's no use liking me, I'm your sister-in-law. Gu Yufei said playfully. David smiled helplessly, although this Gu Yufei said hurt people, but she had a straight temper and a good heart, which was similar to Sonia. Gu Yufei quickly drove to a western restaurant, parked the car, and walked in with David and Sonia. On a table near the corner, a woman with big waves and a pair of sunglasses hanging on her chest is looking at her phone intently, with the charm of a professional woman. Sister, look who's here. Gu Yufei walked up to the woman and said excitedly. The woman looked up and was slightly taken aback, while Sonia hurriedly shouted, Sister Yuyao, can you still recognize me? Sonia, why did you come to Yunchenj? Hurry up and sit down. Gu Yuyao hurriedly stood up and asked happily. My friends and I came to Yunchenj to buy some medicinal herbs. Sonia said and sat beside Gu Yuyao. Only then did Gu Yuyao find David, looked up and down, nodded slightly, and stretched out her hand. My name is Gu Yuyao, Sonia's cousin. My name is David Chen, Sonia's friend. David hurriedly reached out and shook hands with Gu Yuyao. After being seated, Gu Yuyao looked at Sonia with a slight smile, and asked in a low voice, Sonia, which son is this? He looks very energetic, not bad. Sister, don't ask, I'll tell you. Gu Yufei pulled Gu Yuyao, and then whispered a few words in her ear, not knowing what to say. I don't know what Gu Yufei said, but Gu Yuyao's face became more and more ugly, and the look in David's eyes also changed. Sonia, you must be careful when making a boyfriend. With your current conditions, I believe that many people will pursue you. You are still young, so keep your eyes open, don't be deceived by some people, and get married in the future. It's too late to regret it. Gu Yuyao looked at Sonia and said, but obviously this is for David to hear. Sister Yuyao, you misunderstood, actually. No need to explain, I understand everything, and I came from your age. Before Sonia finished speaking, Gu Yuyao interrupted Sonia's words, and then looked at David and said, what's wrong with those who have hands and feet, is soft rice so delicious? Seeing Gu Yuyao suddenly targeting him, David looked helpless, and he didn't even know how to answer her. Yuyao, who eats soft rice? Are there still men who eat soft rice in this society? At this time, a handsome boy with a height of 1.8 meters came over. Brothers Higang, why are you here? You are late for every meal. Seeing the boy, Gu Yufei said with a smile on her face. I just talked about some business, so I was delayed. It's the old rule. I'm late. I'll pay for it today. You can order whatever you want. The boy smiled and then looked at Sonia. This is my cousin Sonia, this is my cousin's boyfriend David. Gu Yufei followed the boy and introduced it. My name is He's Higang, Yuyao's boyfriend. He's Higang stretched out his hand, and the gentleman followed Sonia and David and shook hands. Gu Yufei gave up her seat and let He's Higang sit with Gu Yuyao. What did you talk about just now? You even talked about eating soft rice. After sitting down, He's Higang asked Gu Yuyao. It's just a casual remark. My cousin, the daughter of the richest man in Horindal, has found a freelancer. She doesn't have a job at all. The clothes still need my cousin to buy the guy. Do you think this is not a soft meal? Gu Yao sighed and said, there is a big meaning of hating iron for not becoming steel. David's face changed slightly, although Gu Yao was doing it for Sonia's good, but when he said this again and again, David also got a little angry. His Higang also saw that David's face was wrong, so he said to Gu Yao, you can't say that, how can there be so many good families in the world? I think this David brother is extraordinary, as long as you have the ability and are willing to do it, you can't guarantee it. One day you will turn over, so don't look down on anyone. After his Higang finished speaking, he nodded apologetically towards David, brother David, don't mind, their sisters are too straight and easy to hurt. No, it's all from my own family, and my cousin is also for Sonia's good. David had a good impression of his Higang, and the anger in his heart also dissipated a lot. Let's order and eat, I invite you today, don't save any of you for me. His Higang said, called the waiter and started ordering. Soon, a table was full, and several people were eating and chatting. During the conversation, David realized that this his Higang is easygoing, but his identity is not simple, but the son of the famous Ren Hitang in Yunchenj. You must know that Ren Hitang can be ranked in the top 3 in Yunchenj. There are 18 pharmacies that specialize in the recovery and sales of medicinal materials. It is quite influential in the entire Yunchenj. Listening to his Higang's conversation, David felt that the term rich second generation was not necessarily a derogatory term, but who should be assigned it? Brother David, when you come to Yunchenj this time, are you going to visit or just walk around? His Higang asked David. The two of them are considered to be brother-in-law, so there should be more exchanges. I'm going to come over to buy a batch of medicinal materials. David said truthfully. That's fine, if you want any medicinal materials, just tell me that our Ren Hitang has all the medicinal materials you want, and they all have quality assurance. With our relationship, I will give you the lowest price. In fact, if you really want to do this business, you can also make a lot of money by reselling medicinal materials. His Higang misunderstood David and thought that David wanted to be a drug dealer. That's not what I meant. I'm planning to buy some medicinal materials for my own use. At least it should be 100-year-old ginseng, 100-year-old Ganoderma, etc. If there is 1,000-year-old age, that would be great. David smiled lightly. His Higang was stunned for a moment, while Gu Yao sneered, did you have water in your head? Do you know how much money you are talking about? Especially the 1,000-year-old ginseng Ganoderma, that's all the sky-high price, I'm afraid it will sell you, you can't afford it. David did not speak, and there is no need to explain. After being stunned for a while, his Higang said to David earnestly, Brother David, I can understand your desire to do big business, but the things you said, even in Yunchenj, are priceless treasures. Although the Sua family is rich, they may not be able to do this. If you don't know how to do it, you are afraid that you will be deceived and ruin your family. Brother He, thank you for reminding me, I have my own measure. David followed his Higang to thank him. Seeing that David seemed to have made up his mind, his Higang no longer persuaded him, but said, Brother David, you just came to Yunchenj, take a rest first, go to Ren Hitang main store tomorrow to find me, and I will accompany you for a walk. You get to know yourself first, with me by your side, no one will lie to you. What are you doing with him? Aren't you busy? This kind of guy with high eyes and low hands, he can't do anything. With one mouth, he is 100-year-old ginseng. Does he know how to distinguish 100-year-old ginseng? The more Gu Yao looks at David now, the less pleasing to the eye. Okay, since we've come all the way, we should always accompany us. His Higang smiled slightly. I want to accompany you, I don't have time, I have to go to work. Gu Yao frowned and saw Sonia said, Sonia, you need more attention yourself, but if others ask you to pay, you will pay. I know my cousin. Sonia nodded. After eating, a few people greeted each other and prepared to say goodbye, and then David and Sonia went to find a place to live. Gu Yao wanted Sonia to live in her house, but considering David, Sonia refused. As soon as he walked out of the door of the restaurant, Lin Tianhu greeted him, and the car had been repaired. This is my friend Lin Tianhu. Seeing Lin Tianhu approaching, David introduced He's Hegang. Hello, my name is He's Hegang. He's Hegang shook hands with Lin Tianhu. Brother David, I heard that you have an underground emperor in Horindal called Lin Tianhu. He is called Lord Tiger. He is very powerful in Horindal. There are hundreds of people under him. This brother's name is the same as Lord Tiger. He's Hegang was a little surprised. There are so many names that are the same, can Lord Tiger give him a car with a soft meal? What are you thinking? Gu Yao said with a look of disdain. As soon as Sonia heard it, she opened her mouth and wanted to explain to her cousin that the Lin Tianhu in front of her was the Tiger Lord in their mouths. It's just that he didn't open his mouth, but was stopped by David with his eyes, and then he smiled and said, it's just the same name, it's just the same name. David didn't want too many people to notice their whereabouts. If Lin Tianhu's identity was also revealed, many people in Yunchinch would look at them. After the restaurant was separated, David and the others found a hotel and directly booked 3 rooms, 1 for each person, but David hoped to book 2, saying it was to save some money, but Sonia disagreed. All the way, the boats and cars were exhausted, and there were people from the Wei family chasing and killing them. They were all tired, so they all fell asleep when they lay down. At this time, in the Wei family, the provincial capital, Wei Kunnan was walking uncomfortably. It's been more than half a day, but there is no news at all. He called and contacted his own people. Wei Kunnan's face became more and more ugly, and the uneasiness in his heart became stronger. He knew that something must have happened to his subordinates, otherwise he would not be able to contact him. Fubber! Wei Kunnan shouted. Master! A hunched, thin old man walked in. This old man is the old housekeeper of the Wei family. From Wei Kunnan's father's generation, Uncle Fu has been the housekeeper in the Wei family. Now that he is old, although he is no longer the housekeeper, the Wei family still takes Uncle Fu as its own, and still lets he stayed in the Wei family to retire. Back then, the Wei family was once sought revenge by the enemy family. Hundreds of people besieged the Wei family. Dozens of members of the Wei family were at stake. In the end, they relied on Uncle Fu to repel those enemies. Since then, the Wei family has Faber became his own family. Uncle Fu, you take a few people to Yunchinch, and you must bring the guy who has deposed the young master. If you can't capture it alive, even the corpse will be brought back to me. If this matter is not handled well, I am afraid that the Zhang family will be even worse. Look down on my Wei family. No matter what, Wei Kunnan wants to get rid of David now, otherwise he will be scolded by his wife all day long and looked down upon by the Zhang family, and he will not dare to talk back. Don't worry, my lord, I will definitely bring someone to you. Fu Bo nodded, then turned around and walked out. The next morning, David and the others just got up and had breakfast at the hotel when Gu Yufei drove over. Sister Sonia, brothers Hegang is afraid that you don't know each other, so let me come and take you there. Gu Yufei said to Sonia. Okay, then let's go. Sonia nodded. Sister Sonia, you won't sleep with your boyfriend at night, will you? Gu Yufei walked up to Sonia and whispered. What nonsense, we each have a room. Sonia glared at Gu Yufei. With Gu Yufei leading the way, David and the others soon arrived at the head office of Rinhitang. The location of this store in the city center covers an area of thousands of square meters, which shows that the strength of this Rinhitang cannot be underestimated. Just after entering the door, the waiter at the door of the store politely said to Gu Yufei, Miss Gu, we have ordered him, after you come, you can go directly to the back hall to find him. Got it. Gu Yufei nodded and waved at Sonia. Sister Sonia, let's go to the back hall. David and Lin Tianhe followed behind the two girls. At this time, David looked at the entire Rinhitang. Although it was morning, there were already many guests coming in and out, some inspecting the goods, and some bargaining. In the hall of Rinhitang, there are no less than 1,000 kinds of medicinal herbs, each of which is displayed in the showcase, and they are all attached with the names and effects of the medicinal herbs, which is enough to see that Rinhitang is very formal. David felt it secretly, and found that the medicinal materials in this place were all ordinary things, and they could not sense the fluctuation of spiritual energy at all, but it was right to think about it, who would put the precious medicinal materials in the hall like this? After passing through the hall and another corridor, David and the others arrived at the lobby at the back. On both sides of the lobby are warehouses, which are filled with bags of medicinal herbs. Brother David, you are here. Seeing that David and the others arrived, His Higang hurriedly greeted them with a smile. You guys are sitting down now, I have a guest to entertain, and when the reception is over, I'll take you around. Brother He, don't worry, you are busy first. David smiled slightly. His Higang nodded, come on, have a few cups of tea. After sending someone to serve tea to David and the others, His Higang left. At this time, a middle-aged man was sitting at the table of the 8 immortals in the middle of the lobby. His Higang sat directly opposite the middle-aged man. The two were talking, and there was an exquisite wooden box on the table of the 8 immortals. It seemed that they were doing a deal. David sat down, took a sip of tea, and looked around a little bored. Mr. He, this is an old mountain ginseng that is more than 100 years old. Look at the quality, the head and the ginseng whiskers. This is definitely a top-grade mountain ginseng. It costs you 20 million, a little bit. It's not much, if Rinhitang doesn't accept it, I can go to Tongrentang, they will definitely accept it at 20 million. The middle-aged man suddenly raised his voice and said to His Higang. Because the middle-aged man's voice increased, David couldn't help but look there. Mr. Zhao, we can still talk about it. This ginseng is indeed a top grade, but the price of 20 million is indeed a bit high. Otherwise, if you are going down a little, I will transfer money to you right away. His Higang said with a smile. 20 million, even less is not enough. Since you don't want it, then I'll leave. The middle-aged man said, got up directly, picked up the wooden box and was ready to leave. Mr. Zhao, don't worry, I want it, our Rinhitang wants it, not for anything else, just to make you a friend. His Higang hurriedly stopped the middle-aged man, and then took out his mobile phone. I will transfer money to you now. If there is another high-quality ginseng, and it is brought to our Rinhitang, I will definitely give it a high price. Ha ha ha, good to say. When the middle-aged man heard it, he suddenly laughed, his face full of excitement. Brother He, wait a minute. Just when His Higang was about to transfer money to the middle-aged man, David suddenly walked over and stopped His Higang. Brother David, what's wrong? His Higang asked suspiciously. Sir, can I take a look at this ginseng? David asked the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man did not speak, but looked at His Higang with an inquiring look. Oh, this is one of my brothers. His Higang said hurriedly. My ginseng, Mr. He has already seen it just now, is there any problem? The middle-aged man looked at David and said with a wary expression. I suspect your ginseng is fake. David sneered. As soon as David's words came out, the middle-aged man jumped up like he had been stepped on his tail. What did you say? You dare to say that my wild ginseng is fake? You haven't even looked at it. Just say my wild ginseng is fake? Besides, Mr. He has already inspected the goods, how could it be fake? If you want to find trouble, I am not easy to bully. His Higang hurriedly said with a smile, Mr. Zhao, don't be angry, my friend likes to joke. After comforting the middle-aged man, His Higang frowned slightly and looked at David. "Brother David, I have experienced this mountain ginseng, there is no problem, and you haven't seen it, how can you say it's fake? This ginseng is fake. If you don't believe it, we can open it for verification. If you don't dare to open it, it's fake." David looked at the middle-aged man coldly, and felt a little nervous about the middle-aged man. "If you say open it, open it. What if it is true?" The middle-aged man pretended to be brave and challenged David, but he didn't dare to look directly into David's eyes. "If it's true, I can pay you 10 million. David looked confident. At this time, Sonia and Gu Yufei also came over. They didn't expect David to bet with someone. Only Lin Tianhu was still sitting and drinking tea with a sneer on his face. He knew that the middle-aged man in front of him was going to be unlucky. David's confident look shocked the middle-aged man, and then turned his eyes to His Higang. "Mr. Zhao, since brother David wants to see it, let him see it, so that he can give up. When the time comes, I can mention the purchase price to you." His Higang also didn't believe that the mountain ginseng was fake. After all, he had read it carefully, but David insisted on watching it, so let him see it, so that he could give up. "Okay, since Mr. He said so, I'll let him see it and convince him." The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and nodded. Slowly, the wooden box was opened, and a ginseng plant lay quietly inside. The wild ginseng is huge and the ginseng whiskers are also very long. The main ginseng is thicker than 2 thumbs. "Have you seen it? Such a good mountain ginseng is rare even in Yunchenj." The middle-aged man looked at David with a sneer. "Now that you lose, where is the 10 million? I don't think you look like someone who can give 10 million. David did not pay attention to the middle-aged man, but directly reached out and grabbed the ginseng. "Hey, what are you doing?" The middle-aged man's expression changed, and he reached out to stop it, but it was too late, and the mountain ginseng had already reached David's hands. David picked up the wild ginseng and broke it with both hands. "Brother David, what are you going to do?" His Higang's face changed greatly. "You must know that wild ginseng is only valuable when it is intact. Even if a ginseng whisker is broken, the price will be greatly reduced. If you directly break the wild ginseng, it will be worthless." Click. But as soon as His Higang's voice fell, the wild ginseng in David's hand had already been broken into 2 pieces. His Higang closed his eyes, and the anger on his face rose up. This was 20 million, and it was gone in one fell swoop. Sonia and Gu Yufei also looked at David in shock, not understanding what David was doing. On the other hand, the middle-aged man, seeing David breaking the ginseng, his face instantly turned extremely pale. He turned around and ran out, and he didn't even want the money. "Want to run? Can you run away?" The corner of David's mouth slightly raised. Just as the middle-aged man was running out, Lin Tianhu, who had been sitting and drinking tea, moved and kicked the middle-aged man back. What the H3LL is going on here?" As soon as the middle-aged man ran away, His Higang was a little stunned and couldn't understand what was going on. "Brother He, are you looking to see if this ginseng is real?" David handed the broken ginseng to His Higang. His Higang took the mountain ginseng, and when he saw the broken part of the mountain ginseng, he was stunned for a moment, and then burst into anger. "Damn, you dare to trick me into Renhitang, you are courting death." His Higang stepped forward, kicked the middle-aged man in the abdomen with a ruthless kick, and then roared, "Someone, take him down to me and teach him a good lesson." Soon, the middle-aged man was taken away, followed by a burst of screams. "Brother David, thanks to you today, otherwise we will lose a lot, and we can earn more money when we run out of money. It doesn't matter, but what face will I have in Yunchenj in the future, it's just too embarrassing." His Higang followed David with a look of shame. "It's normal when everyone is careless." David smiled slightly. "Brother David, I want to know how you know this ginseng is fake? You haven't even seen it." His Higang wondered how David knew about it. It's very simple, I'm a natural nose, so I can tell when I smell it. David lied, of course he couldn't tell his Higang that he was sensed by the fluctuation of aura. If it was a century-old mountain ginseng, David could easily capture the aura in the mountain ginseng. And this time David didn't feel the aura fluctuations in the wooden box, so he concluded that it was not wild ginseng, or it was not 100-year-old wild ginseng, it must be fake. His Higang looked at David in shock, and said incredulously, I've lived so much, and I've never seen it before smelling it with my nose, so I can tell whether the medicinal materials are true or false. I've seen it, I really saw it today. Sister Sonia, does your boyfriend still have this stunt? It's better than a dog's nose. Gu Yufei also said in surprise. But after speaking, I suddenly felt something wrong, stuck out his tongue towards David, and smiled apologetically. David didn't care either, he knew that Gu Yufei didn't mean it, so he smiled slightly. Brother David, you've helped me a lot today, I'll take you to the market, and I'll talk to you about any medicinal herbs you like. In the entire Yuncheng, no matter which medicine store, give me his Higang. A bit thin. His Higang patted David on the shoulder and said. A group of 5 people went to the largest medicinal material market in Yuncheng, but after a long turn, David was a little disappointed. In the medicinal material market, there are some common medicinal materials, even if there are some 100-year-old medicinal materials, they have already been squeezed. After drying the ingredients, there is no trace of aura. Brother David, don't you like anything in the medicinal herb market? His Higang looked at David's disappointed look and asked carefully. David nodded, the medicinal materials I want must be more than 100 years old, and the medicinal materials of high quality, here are some common goods, there is nothing I need. He Ji just listened, hesitated for a while, and finally said with gritted teeth, I'll take you to the major pharmacies. They usually have the treasures of the store in their hands, but it's hard to say whether they sell it or not. His peers were enemies, and his Higang seldom went to other pharmacies. After all, they were competitors, and they would guard against them. Moreover, the treasures of the store would not be taken out for peers to see, so he hesitated. But David helped him so much, he could only look down and go to the medicine hall of another family. Brother Lai, David said gratefully. Let's go as a family, say 2 things, let's go. His Higang took David to Tongrentang, the largest medicine hall in Yuncheng. This Tongrentang covers an area of several thousand square meters. The front of the store is full of traffic. It seems to be more busy than his Higang's Renhitang. Brother David, there are many medicinal herbs in Tongrentang that are more than 100 years old. I heard that the treasure of Zhendian is Ganoderma that is more than 1000 years old. In the entire Yuncheng, only this Tongrentang has medicinal herbs that are more than 1000 years old. Tongrentang's status in Yuncheng. His Higang walked in with David and the others as he introduced them. As soon as he walked into the hall, David suddenly felt a burst of spiritual energy, and he locked the herbs in several directions in the hall in an instant, and couldn't help feeling strange. Brother will Tongrentang's more than 100-year-old medicinal materials be placed in this hall? David asked strangely. Yes, in the entire Yuncheng, only Tongrentang dares to put medicinal materials over 100 years old in the hall, and 80% of the medicinal materials over 100 years old in the entire Yuncheng are also in Tongrentang's hands. When he said this again, his Higang's face was a little ugly. After all, he was a peer, and he felt a little embarrassed for being so big. Yet, David nodded and was overjoyed. It seemed that he didn't have to look everywhere. As long as he talked with Renhitang, he would not have to worry about finding precious medicinal herbs in the future. Mr. He, what a rare customer, why do you have time to come to my shop? At this time, a slightly bloated old man with glasses came over. The old man is bloated, but his steps are light, and at a glance, he knows that he is a trainer, and his strength is not bad. Old Joe, I took my friends today and took the liberty to disturb me. Seeing this old man, His Higang hurriedly said respectfully. Don't disturb, let's have tea later. The old man laughed and made a gesture of invitation. His Higang nodded, and the group followed behind the old man towards the backyard. On the way, through His Higang's introduction, David learned that this old Joe's name is Joe's Higan, and he is not a native of Yunchinj. He came to Yunchinj when he was young. Medicinal market. However, with the growth of age, Joe's Higan stopped fighting and killing, and also opened up the entire Yunchinj market. Only then did Yunchinj have so many medicine halls and scenes of flowers blooming, but like those precious medicinal materials, most of them still being controlled by Tongren Tang. After taking a seat in the backyard, His Higang said straight to the point, Elder Joe, this brother of mine wants to buy a batch of medicinal materials over 100 years old. I know that in Yunchinj, Tongren Tang has the most medicinal materials over 100 years old, so I brought it here. One batch. Joe's Higan's eyes lit up, ha ha ha, it's easy to say, President He is thinking about my Tongren Tang, then I can't lose President He, and then the money for tea will always be indispensable. In the business field, there are many cases of introducing customers to each other, so giving some introduction fees is also a norm. Old Joe, you're welcome, this is my brother, not an outsider, so the tea fee will be waived, and the price will be reduced at that time. His Higang said hurriedly. Understood, I understand, Joe's Higan smiled, then looked at David and said, this little brother, do you know how many herbs over 100 years old you need? As much as you want. David said lightly. When Joe's Higang heard this, he was stunned for a moment, and then smiled, little brother, you probably don't know the price of these 100-year-old medicinal materials. One plant costs more than 10 million, and if the quality is good, it can reach tens of millions. Do you know how many such medicinal materials I have here? Do you know how many such medicinal materials are in the entire Yunchinj? His Higang also whispered in David's ear, Brother David, you can buy some to see first, this thing is good, but if you buy too much, it's useless to smash it in your hand. At this time, His Higang didn't know that the medicinal materials David bought were for refining medicine pills, and they were not reselling at all. David didn't say anything, but looked at Joe's Higan and said, Elder Joe, I heard that there is a 1,000-year-old Ganoderma in your store, which is a treasure of the town. I wonder if you can take a look. What? Do you want to buy it? Joe's Higan asked. If it is really a 1,000-year-old Lingzi, I will definitely buy it, and the price is whatever you want. If it is true, David will do everything possible to get it. A 1,000-year-old Lingzi is enough to raise David's strength by a level. Ha ha ha, young people are really hidden now, it seems that I am really old. Joe's Higan laughed, but since it is the treasure of the town store, I won't sell it for any money, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the medicinal herbs of 100 years old. Okay, then ask Elder Joe to take out the medicinal materials and make a price. David smiled slightly, but he didn't insist, because he had already sensed that there was not a single medicinal herb in the entire store that was more than 1,000 years old. Only in the backyard, there was a single aura that fluctuated greatly, but it was only a few hundred years old. Just medicine. It seems that this Tongren Tang has been calling itself the Millennium Lingzi Town Store, which is just bragging. Joe's Higan nodded and patted it 3 times with his hand. Immediately, someone came over with a wooden box. There were 5 wooden boxes in total, and they were filled with medicinal herbs such as 100-year-old wild ginseng, Ganoderma lucidum, and snake yellow. Little brother, here are all 100-year-old medicinal materials, and they are of high quality. Would you like to take a look first? Joe's Higang pointed to the wooden box and said. No need, Elder Joe should talk about the price first. David shook his head. Joe's Higan was overjoyed, he liked this kind of stunned young man who didn't understand anything, but pretended to be sophisticated. This kind of person is the best to earn money. Little brother, feel free, since you can trust me and you are Mr. He's brother, we will sell one plant at a price of 20 million. Mr. He also knows the market price. We will buy 20 million of top-grade medicinal materials of 100 years of age. Jose Higgin squinted his eyes and said with a bold look. David knew that Jose Higgin was not lying, because in Renhitang, He's Higgin also planned to pay 20 million for the high-grade 100-year-old wild ginseng. It seems that the market price is indeed this price. Brother David, 20 million is really not a lot for top-grade 100-year-old medicinal materials. He's Higgin also said to David. David nodded, and then asked, Brother He, what is the current market for this low-grade 100-year-old medicinal material? The lower quality ones are much cheaper, at least more than half cheaper, and no more than 10 million at most. He's Higgin explained. Elder Joe, I'll give you 10 million of these 500-year-old medicinal herbs, so that you can earn a lot. David followed Jose Higgin and said. What? 10 million won? Jose Higgin raised his voice immediately, are you treating my medicinal materials as inferior? I don't think you are buying medicinal materials, but more like a troublemaker, don't even look at them, dare to treat my medicinal materials as inferior. I don't need to look at it. You know better than me whether it's inferior or not. You need to run your business with integrity, so that it can last for a long time. 10 million plants, no more than 1 cent. David looked at Jose Higgin without any fear. Jose Higgin stopped talking and stared at David, his face a little ugly. Old Joe, my brother can know the quality of the medicinal materials without looking at it. Otherwise, I'll take a look and give my brother a thumbs up. Seeing that Jose Higgin was a little angry, He's Hikyong hurriedly said peace. Jose Higgin waved his hand, no need, I've seen it today. Sure enough, heroes come out of teenagers, and 10 million plants will be sold to you. Jose Hikyong didn't let He's Higgin see it. With He's Higging's eyesight, he could see the quality of the medicinal materials at a glance. David also had no ink, so he directly transferred money to Jose Hikyong, which made Jose Hikyong start to look at David with admiration. I still have some 100-year-old medicinal materials here, I'll let someone bring them up. After Jose Higgin finished speaking, as soon as he waved his hand, someone went to get the medicinal materials. Several people were waiting in the backyard drinking tea. Mr. He, do you know that someone in Horrendal is selling a kind of medicine pill recently? Drinking tea, Jose Higgin chatted with He's Higgin. Pill? He's Higgin shook his head, I don't know. This medicinal pill can strengthen the body and prolong life. I ate one myself, and the effect is really good, but I sent my subordinates to study it carefully for a long time, but I couldn't analyze the medicinal composition, and there was no way to imitate it. Jose Hikyong said helplessly. Is there still such an expert in Horrendal? He's Higgin looked a little surprised. If it is said that the drug cannot be copied, it is possible, but it is unbelievable that the ingredients cannot be analyzed. I'm planning to go to Horrendal in a while to meet this expert. If I can take this person for my own use, that would be great. Anticipation flashed in Jose Higgins' eyes, if such a person could use it for himself, it would be a steady stream of wealth. Seeing Jose Higgin like that, David smiled slightly, and Lin Tianhu also glanced at David, smiling without saying a word. This master is right in front of them, but they don't know it. At this moment, a servant walked in a hurry, and then whispered a few words in Jose Higgins' ear. Jose Higgins' face flashed with excitement instantly. Okay, let's go. Jose Higgin waved his hand to let his subordinates leave, and then said apologetically to David and He's Higgin, I'm sorry, I suddenly have something, the matter of medicinal materials, we will talk about it in the afternoon, promise keep it for you. Seeing Jose Hikyong say this, David and the others couldn't stay away, so they got up and said goodbye. This Jose Higgin, with such a large amount of business left alone, can he be in a hurry? Walking out of Tongren Tang, He's Higgin said with a puzzled look. Just after finishing speaking, He's Hegang's cell phone suddenly rang, and a message came. When He's Hegang read it, he immediately exclaimed, "A 1,000-year-old snow lotus appeared at the auction. It hasn't appeared in Yunchinch for many years, and this time it's still a 1,000-year-old snow lotus." Auction. David was puzzled. After He's Hegang's explanation, David realized that this auction was mainly for the auction of some medicinal materials. At the beginning, it was okay. There were often some precious medicinal materials auctioned. However, some fake goods often appeared in the auction later. There are fewer and fewer precious medicinal materials, so few people are going to participate in the auction, and He's Hegang is not paying attention.